The biggest name.
You're locked on to Scotty G and the coach, Tim LaComb, presented by Mountain Land Supply on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
All right, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone, kicking off hour number 4 of the program, just past the 1 o'clock hour here on a Wednesday. Your week's half over. Now, as we prepare for the start of the college football season, we take a look at some upcoming opponents for BYU, Utah State as well, and the Kansas Jayhawks are under the spotlight today. Henry Greenstein, kind enough to join us, covers KU. Henry, how you doing, man? Thanks for joining us.
It's my pleasure. It's always good to be on a KSL program. I'm happy to join you guys. And, man, football season's finally around the corner. It's been a long wait. Last year, KU started fall camp in the third week of July because they had a week 0 game, so it's been a long off season.
Yeah, you know what? I kind of like those week 0 games. Kind of gets us there a little quicker. But Kansas, you know, it's an interesting situation. They showed so much excitement there early on in the Lance Leipold era, and then have kind of come back down to earth. What do you expect out of this squad this year?
Yeah, I feel like the pressure has ratcheted up a little bit, given, you know, that Leipold and his team showed what they were capable of pretty early on, probably earlier than anyone expected in terms of going to bowl games in his second and third seasons at the helm when they previously hadn't been since 2007 and 2008. That was a great accomplishment, but it also set a higher standard. And the fact that, you know, in 2024, when, of course, they went to BYU and won that ridiculous game with the pooch punt. But that was supposed to be their best team. That was the one that was supposed to contend for a conference crown. It goes 5-7. Last year, expectations a little more moderate. Well, they start out 4-2 and then proceed to finish 1-5. So it's been 2 consecutive seasons of disappointment with the same result of falling just short of a bowl game. And now they must proceed forward without Jalen Daniels, who started at least 3 games in each of the last 6 seasons at KU, which has turned the quarterback competition into the dominant storyline of this offseason, which is interesting because I think KU's better at most other positions than it's been in recent years, but the most important one on the field continues to loom large and will undoubtedly receive a lot of attention in the weeks ahead.
So, knowing the program as you do, where do you feel like Kansas perhaps could be better this year? What part of the game can they be better in?
Well, there's a few ways to go with that. One of them, I feel like with the secondary, there's really nowhere to go but up. Last year was DK McDonald's first as a defensive coordinator, and they changed schemes a little bit. They were more multiple in terms of the fronts they used, but I actually thought the defensive line was pretty solid last year. The real weakness was in the secondary. At cornerbacks, they started a true sophomore and a redshirt freshman in Jalen Todd and Austin Alexander. And while Todd was pretty solid overall throughout the year, Alexander was quite vulnerable against a lot of different teams that KU went up against. The hope is that both of them with another year under their belt will look much more capable and be consistent. And KU didn't have a cornerback intercept a pass all of last season, which is just crazy to think about. And so the ability to generate more mistakes from the secondary will be huge. Also last year, part of that scheme change with McDonald was moving to a 5 defensive back look more often. They used to run more of a 4-3 when Brian Borland was the defensive coordinator. They kind of segued into a 4-2-5. Well, the fifth spot, the nickel, the main players they had in mind for it were injured all year, which meant that Todd had to slide inside to play there, which meant they had to put another cornerback who was below the caliber of those two on the outside as well. So tough injury situation there. I think they'll be better at safety this year as well. They've totally revamped that position group with the additions of transfers like Corey Gordon, who previously played at Louisville and Baylor, in addition to Keyshawn Cummings-Coleman from Iowa State, Jaden Harris, who previously played at Miami and Georgia. He was a starter for Miami in 2024. So there's a lot of reason to think they've upgraded there. The other primary position that comes to mind is running back. KU's had a lot of good running backs. Obviously, last time they were out there in Provo, they had Devin Neal, who's the all-time leading rusher. Last year, they had sort of a two-headed monster of Daniel Highshaw and LeSean Williams. And those guys were pretty effective against Utah in that finale. But what they didn't have was a complementary duo. They were very similar kinds of backs. They were bruisers. who ran between the tackles. Williams had a little more breakaway speed, but they've never had kind of a thunder and lightning deal like they do this year with Dylan Edwards from K-State and Yasin Willis from Syracuse. So I'm really excited to see how that goes because especially with Andy Koldnicki back in the fold as the associate head coach and the offensive play caller, he has a lot of new toys to work with on offense, and I think that can help take some of the pressure off whoever wins the quarterback battle.
I remember Big 12 Media Days a couple of years ago. Jalen Daniels shows up with the chain that has the Apple Watch face with playing his highlights. And it just felt like that he was ready to just take that next step. When you look back at his era, is it, and Kansas fans look back at that era, is it a question of what if or what could have been, or do they still appreciate the career that he had? What are the feelings on him as he departs?
Yeah, the problem is he left such a sour final impression with that Utah game and the 2 interceptions in that one that just totally derailed the chance at a big victory and a bowl win. And I think that really had a large impact on how he'll ultimately be viewed, the fact that he couldn't get them over the hump. You know, early in his career, the story was the injuries. He burst onto the scene with that win over Texas at the end of 2021. Early 2022, when College Game Day came to Lawrence for the first time, he was a borderline Heisman candidate before he got hurt against TCU. Came back at the end of that year, obviously had a great performance in the Liberty Bowl, which they ended up losing in triple overtime to Arkansas. And then, 2023 preseason Offensive Player of the Year. He had the Apple Watch chain, and that's when you get the back tightness. He ended up only playing 3 games that year, and Jason Bean was the hero as KU went on to its best modern era season. And then the last 2 years, beginning of 2024, Jalen comes out incredibly rusty. Second half, he plays great. And then last year, first half, he plays incredibly well. Second half, he kind of declines. So ultimately, he's a top 3 quarterback in KU history, probably. But he's going to be all over the record books and a great team leader who was well regarded here, but I think it absolutely puts a damper on everything.
So Leopold takes over in 2021 after Les Miles was there and won the donut, 0 games in 21. So, or excuse me, in 20. So when Leopold comes in, he goes 2-6-9, and then he's had 2 years of 5. What is the temperature around him? Definitely as successful as Kansas has been since arguably the Mangino days, but what is the pulse around Leopold right now?
Well, frankly, just because of bigger picture factors, I don't know that it's really possible for Leopold to that seat. I think just because, first of all, because of how terrible the program was for the 15 years or so prior to his arrival, but also with the amount he's getting paid, with the amount of money they're having to spend on the stadium, with all the other factors that are requiring additional expenses out of college athletic department right now, I don't think there's realistically a world where KU can fire a highly paid coach in basically any sport. That being said, I don't know. I think the fans are getting antsy, and justifiably so, because the last 2 years fell short of expectations. At the same time, I also think there's an understanding that KU could take a step forward this year in some ways, but it could not entirely be reflected in the final record because of how horrific, frankly, their schedule is. They have very few. They only have 3 conference home games because they forewent one of them to play in London against Arizona State in the Union Jack Classic. And the Middle Tennessee game that they originally had scheduled for that date, they tried to move it to week 0, but ended up having to move it to a random time in early October. So the result is they start out Long Island, Missouri, and then Arizona State and London. And then after a bye week, they play 9 consecutive games to conclude the year, including the entire rest of their Big 12 schedule. So I think there's a very real possibility that this team could be better, but it could be held back by the way the year is laid out. And also, I don't know, there are some inopportune matchups out there. They play some of the new coaches, but they play Oklahoma State in the last week of the year. By the time you have to feel their identity will be settled in more. They play K-State in late October and obviously haven't won there in 17 straight years or whatever it is. Haven't beaten them in Lawrence either, obviously. But the schedule does not shake out very well. And so I can see a little bit of wiggle room in that respect, or a little bit of forgiveness. And also the fact that the quarterback situation is so unsettled, I expect that will hang over the year in some way. So while I don't think the temperature is up in terms of an actual job security standpoint, high as it was a short time ago.
If you had to Brandon Sorsby this thing and put money on, I'm just joking. Sorry, bad joke. If you had to pick a starter who you think will be the guy day one for Kansas as quarterback, who would you go with?
I'd give a slight edge to Cole Ballard over Isaiah Marshall, who's his primary competition. I think it really is even and will go well into training camp. Basically, the way it's been described to me is this. Cole Ballard is kind of like a quarterback from a movie. He's like a rah-rah leader sort of guy. He's very well respected in that regard. And he has a good arm. But he's not as good of a processor in terms of on-field situations. He has slower reactions. Marshall's a better athlete. He averaged more than 10 yards per carry as a designed runner in select packages last year. And, even though he's not kind of, like I said, the same kind of rah-rah leader, he's still well respected by his teammates, but he also doesn't have the same level of arm talent, and that can hold him back considerably. He can't maybe make all the same throws that Ballard can. There was a third guy, Chase Jenkins, who was a Rice transfer, but he's kind of maybe not even really a dark horse, just sort of an outside guy who they'll probably find some way to use because of his talent. But in any case, Ballard and Marshall are the two primary contenders. Ballard's a year older. He's been in more games. He had to start against K-State as a freshman, and they almost pulled that one off. I just feel like his experience and his arm talent will give him a very slight edge, but it's very much still up in the air. And a lot of fans are in the Marshall camp and want to see him ultimately win out because he kind of resembles Daniels more in a lot of ways.
Talk about Calvin Clements. Saw him strutting around Big 12 media days. That's a big dude getting a lot of attention on the offensive line. How good can he be?
Yeah, he's kind of hard to miss, right?
Yeah, he's massive. He's massive.
6'7" and 315, or maybe heavier than that. I don't know what they have him listed at right now. But, he's very well liked around these parts. He's a Lawrence native who went to Free State High School here in town. And he got playing time earlier in his career, but sort of bided his time until he was able to take over as the full-time left tackle last season. And frankly, there were some bumps and bruises. I mean, he had a tough time early in the season. Everyone had a tough time against Texas Tech's defensive ends, but Calvin Clements and Enrique Cruz, KU's tackles, were absolutely devastated in that game. It was probably the worst pass protection performance of Leipold's tenure as head coach. So, Clements took his lumps. I think he came out of it a better player. He showed an upward trajectory at the end of the season. And now there's more of an onus on him to be a vocal leader in the offensive line room because guys like Bryce Foster and Kobe Baines aren't there anymore. The offensive line is going to be interesting to watch. The left side of it, I think, can be really good with Clements, who, we talked about the body. He's probably a future pro in some form, especially if he continues to grow. And then left guard Amir Herring, a Michigan transfer, he kind of seized a starting spot right at the end of camp last year and didn't let it go. That's a good start. And then everyone else is kind of new. The center will be Kason Carpenter, an Oklahoma State transfer who used to play at Tulsa. Right tackle will be Nick Morrow, a Cal transfer who spent 2 years at left tackle for the Bears. Right guard will be a position battle between probably the second most prominent position battle behind quarterback. That'll be Tavake Tuikoavatu and Texas transfer Connor Stroh battling it out. So all that is to say, on the blind side, Clements really needs to offer a level of stability, probably to a greater degree than he even did last year. So absolutely one of the most important players for KU reaching his potential this season.
I've always been a huge fan of that Lance Leipold offense and the misdirection, the play, the read options, everything that goes into it. It's just been fascinating to watch. How much difficulty does that put on offensive linemen, and how difficult is that, especially when you got transfers coming in to adjust to that kind of an offense where you're never really sure if you're an illegal man downfield, if it's a run, if it's a pass, or what's going on behind you?
Yeah, Trey Lathan, the middle linebacker who will be the captain of that defense, said something like that at media days where he was like, sometimes they come out in formations I didn't even know were legal.
Yeah.
And so you can only imagine what it's like for an opposing defense who's never seen them before. I definitely think with Kotelnicki returning and once again reunited with Matt Lubick, who is now KU's co-offensive coordinator and tight ends coach. When he was in his first stint at KU, he was an analyst, and he was actually working remotely while battling leukemia, but he was a big factor in a lot of the option game that KU ran to such a success. So the fact that they now have Kotelnicki, Lubick, and Jim Zebrowski, who was kind of demoted to passing game coordinator after being the OC last year, the fact that they're now all back in the same place provides some optimism they can recapture the offensive magic of the 22 and 23 seasons before Kotelnicki left for Penn State. But in terms of the strain it puts on the players, I kind of asked Andy about that in the spring, because towards the end of his tenure, the narrative was, well, these guys are so experienced, they've been around so long, you can afford to layer more and more wrinkles because to them, they fully understand it. Well, it's not really like that now. To a lot of these guys, this will be the first time they've dealt with Andy Kotelnicki, and the scheme, while similar to what Zebrowski is running, is not exactly the same. So I almost kind of wonder if earlier in the season they might have to be a bit more vanilla than we're used to as they settle in and get people more acclimated before they can kind of bring out a fully realized version of what Kotelnicki's scheme is supposed to look like.
So just quick thoughts on the Big 12. Texas Tech obviously was unbelievable last year. I think you could have said that against every line they played. I mean, I watched Utah and BYU struggle mightily against that front. But with Sorsby not being there and all of the drama, what's your take on the Big 12? How do you believe it plays out this year?
Yeah, I'm still pretty high on them. I mean, I think they can replicate that kind of pass rush with the transfers they brought in Adam Trick and Trey White. I still picked them first we did an unofficial media poll. The Tulsa World ran it. I was one of the voters in that. I still picked them first in there. I think assuming Hammond is healthy, with his ability to run, he gives them a dimension they didn't really have last year with Morton. I assume they'll have to ease him in to some extent. But they bring back a lot of good playmakers like Carter, the tight end, and the running backs, and they've only gotten better at a lot of positions, which is hard to imagine. It's not like they have to play the hardest schedule in the world either. I think BYU will absolutely be up there once again, but Tech is still my pick to win the conference. Beyond that upper echelon, though, it's anybody's guess. I continue to be high on Arizona, even though they lost all the players from their best position group last year to the draft. I'm uncertain about some of the other teams people are putting high up. I think obviously getting Dampier back will help Utah a lot. But there's a lot of new coaches. Like K-State theoretically looks more talented than it was when it had a down year, but it's also got a new coach and new scheme and a guy that KU fans are familiar with, Jordan Peterson, as the defensive coordinator. There are some teams where I'm higher on them than most, like Colorado. I actually think they can bounce back a little bit this year. And there are some teams where I find myself a little lower. Honestly, KU's one of them sometimes, and I usually have Iowa State down pretty low as well in the first year under Rodgers. But the Big 12 these days is such a black box. You open it up, and you have no idea what's going to come out, and I feel like this is going to be another year very much like that for just about any team.
Well, I mean when a conference looks so bad because Arizona State picked to finish last, ends up winning the thing, that they just completely eliminate the preseason poll because it was so horribly done. Not that anybody was to blame. We all would have done it. With hindsight, this conference is a little upside down. Give me your thoughts, though, on Arizona State. Do you have them kind of positioning up or down?
Yeah, I think I've got them. I'll have to look back at exactly what I did. I think they had them maybe around 6th. They've got quarterback uncertainty as well, but the options they're choosing between are more experienced when you think about Cutter Boley, Mikey Keene, and then, of course, they've got a highly touted recruit as well. I like the Miller kid, who's the transfer from Colorado at receiver. They obviously brought in a former KU safety, Lyric Rawls, which is honestly one of the bigger transfer portal departures KU has had. Not that he was incredible last year, but he played a huge amount of snaps and was kind of a leader on that end. And usually KU hasn't lost a lot to the transfer portal in terms of veteran guys. So that was interesting. But yeah, that game in London will be a tipping point for both teams' seasons. When you look at the level of influence that playing in the Aer Lingus Classic has had on teams in recent years, I think, it's a little different because they play in the week 3 or whatever it is as opposed to week 0. But whatever happens, the team that loses will be judged. The rest, as Lance Leipold said at Big 12 Media Days, the rest of their season will be seen as a consequence of whatever happens in that game, kind of like it was with K-State last year or Florida State the year before that, and so on. So I actually think that'll be a pretty even matchup. I think ASU may have a little more talent at this point. The game 2 years ago in Tempe, the year that ASU was really good, was a thriller, and I'm excited to see how that goes and be over there for that one.
Look, I know you're all about football, but you are here on the air in Salt Lake City. So let's pretend I give you a microphone. You walk on the street there in Lawrence, and you put a microphone in somebody's face that's wearing just some Kansas memorabilia or, paraphernalia, and you say, Darren Peterson, give me your thoughts. What do you think that fan's going to say?
I think it'll be a little bit of disappointment, not just that KU fans didn't get to see him at his best. And I don't think anyone doubts he's going to go on to great things there in Utah. And I think everyone thinks it's a great fit for him. But I think it's going to be a what could have been kind of situation. Because honestly, the best part of the year for KU last season was the part where he was playing halves of games. They went on that huge 8-game winning streak. The one that included the big win over BYU on the 31st and the win over number 1 Arizona. That was during the time where his availability was inconsistent. When he came back, the rest of the team got worse, not through his fault, but the other guys didn't know how to play with him in a complementary fashion. So I think it'll be regret and a what if, and probably, it may have surpassed Joel Embiid's lack of availability in his 1 year at KU is kind of the biggest what if of the Bill Self era. What if Darren Pete, if they had gotten gotten a hold on his creatine levels or whatever. So not that people are bitter necessarily, but I think just sad about how it all turned out. I certainly am sad that I only got to see him play 9 home games here in Lawrence.
Well, if he doesn't do it here, we're going to hold it against you, and we're coming for you.
Yeah.
So we got you a number, dude.
Although we have gone to every supplement store and banned the sale of creatine. So we hope that there's no creatine available at any place here in Salt Lake City, and just to try to keep our guy off of it as much as possible. So
very smart.
Yeah. Hey, we appreciate your time. Great conversation. Let's do this again a little bit later on the year, okay?
Anytime, guys. Thanks for having me.
Appreciate it. Fun conversation. Talking Kansas football as we get a little bit closer, as he mentioned, to the start of the season. That's Henry Greenstein, covers Kansas for the Lawrence Journal-World.
He was great. Loved him. And
good get, Alex.
Yeah, very, very good get. Kansas, obviously, I said it, I was looking through their wins, and Leopold's taking them, he got them those 9 wins, and everybody was excited.
Oh, yeah.
It's dropped to 5 a couple times.
I was, too. I was fully on that Kansas bandwagon because, I'm not even going to lie. I would watch, when I was coaching my son's football team, I would watch Kansas games and steal plays because my kids were not very fast. They weren't very athletic. And so what I would do on my team is it was all about misdirection. And so I would sit there and I'd watch Kansas games. I'd be like, okay, we could do that. We could do that. And doggone it, we only had 1 loss that year because nobody knew where the ball was because I was running Lance Leipold plays on I love that. My kids' 7th grade team. Yeah.
I would have paid to have been there back in the day. You're not coaching anymore, are you?
No. Once the games actually matter, those parents are crazy. I want no part of that. 0 part of that nonsense.
Yeah. Look at what it does to you.
I know.
Look at this guy.
Yeah.
That's called parentdom.
Oh man. I mean, I'll be watching games and look, 9th grade frosh games that mean nothing, and these parents are just horrific. I'm like, nope.
You could have given the ball to Billy there instead of Bobby.
Yeah. My kid would have scored. No, I don't think so.
Yeah, you think it's fun. You think it's fun standing on the sideline, thinking you got all the answers. This is what you look like afterwards.
There you go. Case in point. Are you kidding me? You look fantastic for what you've been through.
Well, thank you. But it's definitely taken a toll.
All right. We'll spin the wheel. Sports Roulette next. This is 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
We all have routines. I'm Jabron, and with diabetes, mine was finger sticks. Sometimes I skip them because they hurt. The Freestyle Libre 3CGM changed that. It gives me glucose insights without finger sticks. Learn more at freestylelibre.us.
Finger sticks are required if your glucose alarms and readings do not match symptoms, or when you see check blood glucose symbol for the first 12 hours. The views expressed should not be used for medical diagnosis or treatment as a substitute for professional medical advice. Individual circumstances may vary. For prescription only. Safety info found at freestylelibre.us.
It's time to spin the wheel and talk some sports. This is Sports Roulette on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
It is time for another edition of Sports Roulette. We take some of the big storylines, we put it on a roulette wheel, we spin it. Wherever that little ball lands is what we end up talking about. Alex Napolis doing a tremendous job filling in for Lloyd Cole. In fact, let's be honest, he's exceeding the job done usually by... I'm kidding.
Oh, of course he is.
But no. Lloyd's not listening. Lloyd's somewhere in the middle of nowhere, Wyoming.
He's resting on his laurels like Joel Embiid. He got his MVP.
Lloyd Pip over there.
He's being pipped.
Getting pipped as we speak.
And we're not talking about Gladys Knight and said pips. We're talking about Wallace.
No. Not taking that midnight train to Georgia. No, sir.
Not anytime soon.
By the way, all right, don't look at him. You and I are going to wager if Alex Napolis knows who Wally Pip is. Are you going to say yes or no?
No.
I'm going to say yes.
I do know who Wally Pip is. Yeah. Well, and funny enough, it came from Lloyd, who told me who Wally Pip was and all that.
Well, so Wally Pip just Wally Pipped himself. He's like, yeah, I guess I am Wally Pip.
That's called foreshadowing.
Yeah, no doubt. All right, let's go ahead and spin that wheel.
Cousins over Mendoza.
Oh, your guy Fernando can't even win the job.
What are you talking about?
Clint Kubiak makes a big announcement opening up Raiders camp.
There's battles everywhere on the roster, so it's important for me to be fair to the players is to put the best player out there. When we go out to practice tomorrow, Kirk Cousins is the starting quarterback. He's the guy, and he's going to get a ton of reps, and he deserves them because he's played really good football. But I want Fernando, and I want Aiden to push him.
Oh, Fernando.
You don't take the number one pick. Sit him.
Can you say bust already? Can we say that?
He must have been horrible in OTAs.
Where's Lloyd? Oh, I want Lloyd here. I want Lloyd here so bad. It's the only time I'm going to say this all week. I want Lloyd here.
Should we call him?
Look how, he didn't even let this thing go into camp. He's like, no, Kirk Cousins is our starter. Wow.
That actually, I'm just a new Raider fan, but that one hurts. That one, I'm not going to lie. I can't imagine how Lloyd would react, but come on, Clint. Think bigger, bro.
And the interesting thing too is, he's the son of Gary Kubiak, and Gary.
He's holding the Broncos down. He's still got Broncos on his mind.
I think that's what he's doing. He's like, okay, what can I do to mess with to help out the Broncos here?
I watched Gary Kubiak play. That's how old I am.
Oh, I watched him play too. And in fact, there's a couple of games. I mean, he was always in Elway's shadow, but every now and then he'd come in and help you win a big game.
He's usually just had a big old chaw in his mouth.
Oh yeah, no, he did. Well, he's a Texas A&M guy.
That's right.
All right, spin it.
Asiata DUI.
We talked about this is the time of year where, unfortunately, those things kind of happen. And right now, BYU backup linebacker, according to Jay Drew, who reported on this in the Deseret News, BYU backup, I'll just read it verbatim from Jay's piece. BYU backup linebacker Ephraim Asiata arrested on suspicion of driving under the influence, producing a fake California driver's license, and was booked into the Utah County Jail earlier this month. He was on BYU spring roster as of March. They had not published the fall roster as of yet today, but apparently, and BYU puts out, by the way, this is such the boilerplate thing when somebody does something bad. BYU football program aware of the situation and currently under evaluation by the university. And that's, look, there's not much else to say. But a tough deal, if true. It's a rough deal, and he's got some work to do. So
I will just add that I think the biggest thing here is, and we've talked about it the last 3 days. I mean, you gotta think about this stuff. I mean, the hard part about this one is he was in such a tough deal he was the kid that got shot at Hunter High School. So I just pray for him. I hope he can figure it out. But it's not the end of the world unless you make it the end of the world. And so we'll see how things kind of rectify. But I'm with you, BYU. The boilerplate statement until we hear more.
Yeah. By the way, remember, he's still a minor, too. So he's got possession, consumption of a controlled substance by a minor. And again, driving without a license and failure to operate within a single lane. So, tough deal for him. All right, let's go ahead and spin it.
Cole Bishop, the most interesting man in the world.
All right, so this video coming out of Buffalo training camp. So all these guys come back from their summer vacations, if you will, their time off, and they're asked what they did during the offseason. Well, apparently former Ute safety Cole Bishop is, as I think it's well put by Alex, maybe the most interesting man most interesting man in the NFL.
What'd you do this summer?
I went base jumping with Cole Bishop in Moab, Utah.
All right, what'd you do this summer?
Actually, Cole Bishop invited me to bungee jump in Iceland.
Cole Bishop had me on his yacht. It was a great time.
Party with Cole on his yacht. Me and Cole, we went on the golf course. He took me on a boat. He even put me on his private jet one time. He told me not to tell nobody.
I didn't know Cole had a private jet. Had Rio, he had his own spot out there. He got his own villa. I think it's like 6 houses. I think he's trying to buy a beach out there. I didn't know he was balling like that, but hey.
Did some humanitarian work with Cole Bishop over in Uganda. We built some schools.
Cole, he FaceTimed me. He's like, hey, man, let's hang this afternoon. One of the best days of my life.
Cole in the Netherlands, and Cole's DJing, and he did this whole set where he was going. And Cole cut his hair.
Fine dining. And on the third tee box, guy passed out in the woods. Cole in his bag has smelling salts, cracks it, and then the guy gets up and finishes the round with us. Cole Bishop is a hero.
2v1 basketball with Cole versus Aiden Cole. Cole Bishop came, flew in, picked me up on his private jet. We went to the white party together, and I was just thinking, damn, God forbid a white boy get a little bit of motion.
Hey, what'd you do this summer?
Nothing.
By the way, that was to Cole Bishop there at the end.
Nothing. That was well done.
That was very well done. Very well done. Yes, Cole Bishop, the most interesting man in the National Football League. Who knew the former Ute was the man like that? Humanitarian missions.
Smelling salts in
Smelling salts on a golf bag.
I gotta think bigger.
That's awesome.
I do keep like a EpiPen. No, I don't.
All right, let's spin it.
An update from KC.
Yeah, we talked about this story yesterday, and it's certainly a sad and a horrific story, but a positive update. Chiefs coach Andy Reid updating the condition of Mia Bieniemy, the wife of offensive coordinator Eric Bieniemy, who was allegedly shot multiple times by the couple's son on Sunday night. Andy Reid said, quote, "She's doing great. She's doing better and great from where she was. She's out of the ICU. She's making progress, so we're very, very happy about that." And Reid asked if there's any timetable on Bieniemy's return. He said the important part that's taking place here, Eric's a big part of this. We love having him here, but it's important that he takes care of his business, and everybody knows that. Eric will be back soon enough to jump in there and do his thing, but he's got to take care of his family first, which obviously is 1,000% accurate. So, again, an ugly situation could have been far, far worse, and fortunately, Eric Bieniemy's wife is doing much better and out of the ICU and expected to get back on the path of recovery.
Will you roll that one more time? Bless her, too. Bless her.
All right. Again, spin it.
NCAA is feckless.
They are, and we talked about
the word
this
of
one.
the day is feckless.
But if it's so bad and it's so stupid, I feel like we should talk about it twice.
Yeah.
With all the millions of dollars being transferred from one guy to the next.
Yes.
Guys asking if university programs actually could be for sale. And we're going to, as an NCAA, suspend a linebacker over a $427 flight. You just can't get out of your own way, can you?
Arian Carter will miss the first 2 games of the season for accepting a $470 flight from an agent after he declared for the NFL draft. So he declared for the draft, aggravated the injury, needed surgery, so he then decided to return to Tennessee for another season instead of hurting his draft stock. So he decides to go back to Tennessee. While he had declared for the draft, he did accept a flight that was paid for by an agent, and because of all of that, he will miss the first 2 games of the year. Josh Heupel said, look, he disengaged from the agent, repaid him for the flight back in January, but the NCAA finally saying, we can do something now, guys. We can do it. Let's do this. They make this poor kid miss the first 2 games of the year, which is
I would
just
love
ridiculous.
if he went and got an injunction.
Oh, I would too. Go find Sorsby's lawyer, find Sorsby's judge, and just go sue the crap out of the NCAA.
Is that the camera? I think that's the camera.
That's your
I'm
camera.
going to look right into the camera.
All right. Here we go.
NCAA, you're spineless, and you're feckless, and you're idiots, and you're the reason we are where we are right now in college sports. So thank you guys for taking all the money all these years, building the big buildings, and doing absolutely jack.
What he said. I concur. There you go. Yeah, that's one thing that brings everybody together. NCAA. What did remember Brian Bosworth when he was in college and he wore that shirt on the sideline that said National Communist against athletes?
That was it. I was so into Boz that I kept
Did you
those.
do the hair?
Oh, yeah. I'll show you my
nice.
senior picture. I got a line in it.
Nice.
And on certain days, I'd paint it.
Brian Bosworth, the Boz, just took the world by storm, and then he got dump trucked in Seattle by the greatest running back, or maybe the greatest athlete of all time, Bo Jackson, and then we never heard from him since. Until, by the way, and you know who Brian Bosworth is, Alex, right?
I do not know.
Okay, all right.
Yes, you know.
You will know here in a second. He's the sheriff in those Dr. Pepper ads in the fan things, Fan Nation, whatever spots I do. He's the sheriff. That's one of the greatest college linebackers of all time, Brian Bosworth. And people don't understand how good he was. He played at Oklahoma. He was an absolute menace. Went to the NFL, and then played for the Seahawks, and injuries, and then got embarrassed by Bo Jackson on national TV on a Monday night game. And then the next thing you see him is he's showing up in commercials for Dr. Pepper.
I thought that was just like a random actor.
I know, right?
I didn't realize it was a player.
He actually he does a pretty good job.
Do you realize he went in the supplemental draft?
Yeah, because the NCAA was going to suspend him.
That's right. So born in 1965, Brian Keith Bosworth, and he was a bad mamma jamma.
That was the first autobiography I ever read of an athlete. And let's just say that he went into very distinct details of what went on there in Oklahoma. And there was a good time to be had by those Oklahoma players back in the 80s.
He was a throwback to Jim McMahon, kind of that renegade. Yep. Jim said his favorite day in Provo was when he saw it in the rearview mirror. He literally said it.
Oh, boy.
And, I don't know that I argue too hard now that I'm in Salt Lake. Nothing against you down there, folks, but this is a good spot to be.
Well, I mean, look, it's the commute. It's all about the commute.
Yeah, just ease of my life.
Yeah. All right, we'll wrap up this bad boy next. 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
And the Utes, Cougars, and Aggies. When it comes to sports in Utah, we've got you covered. This is Scotty G and the coach, Tim LaComb, presented by Mountain Land Supply on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
That was a fun show today. Good stuff.
Covered a lot of ground. Talked NFL, NBA.
Yes.
College football, even down to the level of Kansas in the Big 12. And we had Dan Wolken on. I love that. I was going to talk to him like his name was Christopher Walken. So what do you think of the season this year? Do you feel like it's going to be a good one, do you?
What's your dad did give you this watch to you?
One of the greats. He just does it his way.
Yeah. His cameo. Well, I guess not a cameo, but his spot in Pulp Fiction kills me.
Unbelievable.
Just unreal.
I loved his Saturday Night Live appearances because he's just so awkward and good at the same time. So not, Dan, don't call me Christopher Walken.
All right, so back at it tomorrow. We got another busy show as our guy Alex is already putting in the work. We will hear from Stuart Mandel. Also, the Hammer, John Wilner, will join us as well. Nice. I like John Wilner. Have you had a chance to chat with him yet?
I think we did. I did one time over at Dally when you weren't there.
Oh, okay.
At the Mazda.
Yeah, John's a guy that he's got great info, and he's got opinions as well.
The Hammer.
Yeah, he doesn't mess around. Stuart Mandel, great conversation, and these guys can really break down what we're looking at in the Big 12 too, because there's one thing about this conference that we know is that we don't really know anything. Like Texas Tech could just win the thing and go 12-0. They could go 7-5 without a quarterback. Utah could win the whole thing. Arizona State could win the whole thing. BYU could go 11-1. I don't think BYU has it in them to go 6-6, but BYU, if there's injuries, somebody's expected to be good, won't be good, and somebody who's expected to be bad will be good, and it's just trying to figure out who those teams are going to be.
And that's the beauty of a season. It's awful when you're in the midst of it, but there's lots of variables. Guys getting hurt, and guys not playing up to the par, and so guys that surprise you, that find a way onto the field. So 30 days, man. Tomorrow when we take the air, we'll be in the 20s. And we'll be down in Provo tomorrow.
Yes. BYU, kind of their football kickoff. We'll have a bunch of interviews as well. So we're excited to hear from, I'm sure Kalani Sitake will join us. We'll have a chance to catch up with other players and coaches throughout the day. So we'll be down there starting with DJ and PK all throughout the day. And so get your BYU fix coming up tomorrow.
Love you, B.
Love you, B. Coming up next, it is Jake Scott and Ben Anderson. Before we wrap up, any final thoughts, Coach?
Are you getting your lumber today?
I might submit my request for lumber. I am building a shed in my backyard, and I think I'm getting close. We've been negotiating. I'm trying to get the cost of lumber down. Apparently, trees are in demand. I don't know if that's because we ticked off Canada. I don't know what's going on, but lumber prices are exorbitant. We got to stop this. It really matters when it affects me and my pocketbook.
I mean, not until. I will just add that if you need a stooge, just somebody to balance, like if you need to lean lumber up against me or something while you work, just know you've got a day out of me when you need me.
It's interesting when you think like, some people are like, I'm going to build like my daughter a dollhouse, or I'm going to build a doghouse for. I'm like, no, I'm going to build a 160 square foot shed in my backyard.
For the most important things in my life, my gardening tools, because without them, there would be no yard.
Exactly. This is all just trying to keep the legend of the yard going. I can't imagine this is that hard, though. Really, like there's nothing YouTube and some online plans. Like I can I got a circular saw. I can cut and drill and hammer with the best of them. Like it shouldn't be that hard.
I just hope the wood doesn't end up like that Wang Chung cassette you bought earlier that you had to throw away. You know. Wang Chung in town tonight with Howard Jones, by the way.
Wang Chung
and modern English. Yeah, so it's a 80s fest out there at Maverick.
I had no idea that Wang Chung was still with us, but yep, everybody Wang Chung tonight. All right, that wraps it up for us. Jake and Ben coming up next, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Love you, B.